All right, and we are back talking Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. Season number 2, season 3 is already underway. So much is going on. We'll talk about that. But right now, today will all be about episode 7 and all of these feelings people have with Dorinda, which there's so many. I mean, I, over the past couple episodes, have really sided with Dorinda on a lot of things. Obviously, at the Red Lion Inn, what she said to Brandy really is something you don't mess with, really. So that was in a really low vibration, low frequency style of Dorinda where she did go too much. But anyways, we will get into it. I appreciate you checking out the show. Hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. is the best place to go on YouTube, where you can see all of the YouTube videos that we have. Over 200 on this channel, over 200 on the other channel, and we are just getting going. Let's break down this show. We'll try to wrap it up a little quicker than usual. So we basically wake up from everybody having such an experience at the Red Lion Inn. And Marco gets a confessional of his own. I will tell you that on season 1, I think they tried to have a little eye candy for the ladies. And when Marco came in, you just kind of were like, oh, it's just, he's just somebody merely working there for Dorinda, but you didn't really think, is he a cutie or not? But I am here to say we've only seen him with the mask mostly, and he's really in a role of, helping and when in need for hospitality. So you really just didn't see it. But I will say, with the cute little curl and without the mask and the charm, I was like, okay, I see you, Marco. So it was a great little confessional. His whole thing was, you can't he was basically saying, as a regular person who's not a housewife, you can't understand how they can go at 100 and then make up so easily. So that set the tone of the episode as far as like the recap from the previous night, which I got to tell you, I don't always feel like I need a previous night's recap. I'm more focused on what's coming up next, but I guess a couple things were important because it did change the dynamic of the whole table at breakfast, which we'll get to. We do see a delightful Dorinda. She loves her mornings, and she says she never gets hungover, and she is hungover this time. So we have a little, I would say, when you never get hungover and you learn your drink of choice, you maybe act poorly or have bad behavior while drunk. But in her, true as it is, in her world, being a housewife, clip, 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 not well, bitch, all those things were, from drunk moments. And very rarely did they get in the way of the success of the show she's trying to make. When she was with Bethany, I think it was in Florida, and they were talking to people that were helping Bethany with her foundation. That was one of the only times, not one of the only times, but it was one of the early times rather, that you understood, like, Dorinda, you keep getting rewarded for the drinking. And I don't like to come on these shows and say like, oh, so and so is out of control and they're such a drunk and they should really be monitored. I don't think Dorinda is that. I think she's a loud, fun, wild, in your face person, tons of opinions regardless, and it just turns up slightly with the drinking. I do know that a lot of people on Twitter, and I don't really try to go on Twitter, Reddit, any of those things. I try to make all of my opinions just based on what I like or what we like together, but I really feel like Dorinda is still her. It's not the drinking. A lot of times people say, oh, just eliminate the drinking and you'll be good. I think Dorinda is, I don't know, like, she just really is herself. I'll get to her drinking in a moment. I guess I don't want to go on a tangent with that, but I will say, even if I'm not defending her as I was a second ago, I'll say that if you, the person, get a hangover and you never get hangovers, it's a bit of a rude awakening. So I'm kind of glad that she has to go through that, because then it'll allow her to maybe dial it down, listen to people. And that's exactly what happened on this episode. We've got the issues from the Red Lion Inn brought back up. Like I said, I get a little bit bored about it. But there were some substantial things that happened with Jill, with Brandy, in the vein of Dorinda. Jill's all hugs. She loves hugs, and we love that she loves hugs. Brandy isn't all hugs. She's not really ready for a cute little thank you, I love you, oh, last night was crazy, and move on. And I gotta say that I really do find that I'm also like that a little bit, like Brandy, where I don't always, if stuff got out of hand, I don't want it to be like you can just the next day act like nothing happened. That doesn't really work well for me. And it sucks because sometimes when you're the person who says, well, we got to talk about, yesterday, sometimes people make it like, oh, well, you're, dwelling on stuff or whatever. But it's like, no, what Brandy was doing was nipping it in the bud, I think. Now, I will have some problems because, again, I do tend to find Dorinda as not a problem on this series. Aside from what she said about Brandy, you don't cross that line. But everything else in the pile on, and I'll talk about that in a second, I didn't like that. I wasn't really for that. I didn't really see. Anyways, I'll get to it. I feel like I'm jumping the gun a smidge, but we'll talk about it because sometimes people will, when one person has an issue, like Brandy, then suddenly everyone's like, "Oh, well, look, see, it's all of us having problems with you," and it's like, yeah, but some of you did some really ridiculous stuff. So what do you expect? I mean, not ridiculous, but I mean, if I say, you're not eating in the upstairs guest bedroom, you're not eating in the upstairs guest bedroom. It's pretty clear. Dorinda was pretty clear. So Vicky, you can't put your, we're all having issues with you. She did something wrong to Brandy, and I admit that, but she didn't do anything wrong to Vicky. So I'm not a big fan of like, I don't want to say that Vicky, Tamra were doing the hit them while they're down kind of thing, but there was a sense of that in my opinion. I felt it, and I'm just like, get out of here. But it still, to me, worked well because it was a learning lesson for Dorinda. So I hope I'm not riding the fence on that, but that's just how I feel about everything. I think that let me see. Let me move on. As I said, the group had issues with Dorinda. Vicky texting the ex's kids for the birthday was something that Dorinda had a strong opinion about. Vicky the next day, as I said, a bit of a pile on once they're all talking to Dorinda, and Brandy's kind of saying what she feels, and I don't want to just smile it away, and I want to make sure that we know that this is a problem and you can never cross that line again. And then everyone's piling on. Let's just talk about it. Is it that big of a deal? Vicky, you are a housewife. Have a backbone. Just say something back. I don't know. It did not seem that bad. Yes, she was drunk, but texting the ex who is at the moment on this show, Vicky's always saying it just happened, it just happened, it just happened. I would kind of agree with Dorinda. I mean, and Dorinda said it. He goes, "You are being kind to the kids of a man who was not kind to you." Something like that. And yes, she was drunk. And yes, she was sloppy. And yes, she's been having problems. And the Red Lion Inn was not a good experience, for her. But Vicky, I don't understand. Like, just to make it as if, Dorinda is the problem. I mean, I guess no one asked her for her advice, but that's what communication is. You're on a trip together. You're talking about it. I think the point that Dorinda really kind of made, but didn't make enough was, well, then shut up about it. It's one of the two. If you're going to keep bringing him up and how sad you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and I got to be around you. And I'm not even faulting Vicky per se for wanting to do it. The fault is that she did do it because you do know that you shouldn't do that. If he treated you a certain way and you're trying to hammer out the actual breakup, you need to stick to that. You shouldn't really go back and forth with the kids because that's like, it's like sometimes in order to grow on a lot of things, relationships, work, family relationships, sometimes the bridge needs to be closed completely. And when I say completely, I don't mean forever. Close it completely, and then it could reopen later because you need that time. You need both parties to understand what's going on. But I could see where Dorinda was trying to be a friend. I mean, I really could. I know maybe everyone doesn't feel that, but I did not take this recap here and decide that I was going to really support and defend Dorinda. I just didn't realize that I liked a lot of her actions. I have not really found too many outside of what she did to Brandy. That was so terrible. So that's just what I think about that. Let's move on. Tamra and Vicky are annoyed. As I said, they kind of pile on with Brandy. Dorinda tries to apologize, and she does apologize, but I do feel like she does, and maybe I have a little bit of this in me too. She tried to put a lot of excuses as to why she did what she did. And I think if you're going to apologize, Dorinda, like I said, I'm a big Dorinda supporter, but you do need to just like be completely like, this is what I'm sorry for. This is what I apologize for. I don't think you could go back and forth and say, well, you said this and that kind of got me. It's just like, I want to say I'm sorry because what I did was out of line. I must have made you feel so uncomfortable. I can't believe I was brought to that level, and I will work on it and it will never happen again. That's what she should have said. Now, what I find interesting, and I don't know if anyone else does, is it's kind of turning into and I think Jill and Taylor, who was it? Taylor? I think they talked about it a little bit before too. It's a what is making Dorinda so mad? And I'm just kind of like, I'm just not buying it. And again, hit the comments, if you have a constructive criticism, not criticism, but like an opposite opinion where you're just like, no, Dorinda was wrong because of this. I would love to hear it. I don't care. I'm fine with that. But where I think it's kind of a cop out is you have one polarizing thing that she did, which was out of line. But all the other stuff wasn't out of line. And who's to say that the Vicky, the Tamra, the whoever else Dorinda supposedly is getting so mean to, who's to say that you weren't wrong in those situations? You see? And I didn't like the pile on. I keep saying pile on. I didn't like the pile on feeling that, oh, well, it's because, she's mad. And when she lost Richard, she doesn't really have, she has anger bottled up or whatever. And I'm like, I don't think she has anger bottled up, but sometimes you do dumb stuff. When you do the dumb shit, you got to sometimes be held accountable or whatever. You come with this passive aggressive energy. You expect like you can don't. Okay, like what I'm saying is when Vicky was there at the Red Lion Inn and she was saying, oh, I want to whoop it up. I want to whoop it up. Dorinda comes in and goes, don't do that. I mean, this is like, you're kind of like really embarrassing the Red Lion Inn. You're trying to make it seem like it's not as valid as the wherever you would like to go that's more elaborate, and it's a bit rude. So in that case, would you say, oh, Dorinda's got bottled up anger because she checked Vicky? No, she checked Vicky because Vicky was out of line. So that's a notion I will tell you that I'm not going to go with. I will not go with the notion that Dorinda's mad. And maybe because I've been in situations like that on my own where, things weren't going great for me. And, if I irrationally pop off to somebody for no reason, that's just because, that I would have to take accountability for. But if I'm not going through my best stage in life and something, has happened, Dorinda loses the show. She's back on SiriusXM, but she had lost that for a little bit, I believe. Never really pictured herself living in this situation without Richard. Bit isolated, maybe some of those kinds of feelings. She to turn all that into, well, the only reason she says something to anybody is because she's mad, I think is a crock of shit. I really do. I really, really do. Because there's a lot of times that passive aggressive energy comes through. Like I said, Vicky had passive aggressive energy when she wanted to whoop it up and do something bigger and better than Red Lion Inn. How shitty of a comment is that? I set something up for you. We're here at this beautiful dinner that meant a lot to me. I worked here, and you want to come with a snide comment like that, almost a passive aggressive comment like that. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something, and it's not gonna have to. And me telling you is not gonna have to do with the fact that I'm a little bit what is it called? A little bit angry. I don't know. I just don't buy it. I wish I could talk more about it, but I really have been trying to tell myself I don't want to do all these tangents because I would like to get these done really quickly. But I'm a talker, baby. It is so hot. It is so hot, and we were just trying to make it through. We got the air conditioning on, and it's nice because this episode had Christmas in July. September rather. So it got me the cozy vibes, which I liked. Let me see. I think she did try to make it nice, and I don't like the pile on, is what I just stated. Yes, I will say that in her confessional, when she did tear up, not that she was playing the victim or anything like that, I really feel like maybe it was just an opening for her as like an eye opener, where it's like, oh, I can't let my trying to make it nice and then all that tension comes on me to be a good host, and then get shooken up by everybody. So again, to the question is one or two things. Is Dorinda, is she like, is she more popping off and having arguments with everybody because she's mad and bottled up anger? I don't think so. Is she popping off on people because they might have had a misstep and she's not going to hold her tongue? But more than that, I would, if you had to do one blame, the blame I would go for, and I've done it too. I try to set something up. I try to put everything on my shoulders, make everyone happy. And if it doesn't go the way I maybe want, and not even like the way I want, but cooperation starts becoming an issue, I'm saying for me, I need to learn to be like, oh, okay, I just got to go with the flow. I did set up this great event. Let's all have fun. Like, let's still stay in the same harmony. Dorinda, I think, is doing this thing where she's so excited to set everything up and she's expecting everyone to do it the exact way she wants. And she does not exactly have the right to take it out on anybody if they don't. But with that being said, effing cooperate. I said on another podcast, I used to be a podcast producer, and it's always that thing where when the people who are the hosts, this is my own project, but when the people are the hosts, they just making noise. They're not sitting in their seats that they're supposed to. They're we're on a time budget, we know that, and they've got phone calls to make. And so I've been in that situation where I'm like, you're making me have to wrangle you, and with a stern voice. But if you would just do what you were supposed to, like, it really doesn't go there. So I think there has to be a little bit of room for Dorinda in terms of, like, she doesn't have the best group of women in terms of being on time. So let's give her that, I will say the people who don't like Dorinda are probably like, where in the F is he getting all this love for Dorinda? Is he on the payroll? Yeah, Dorinda's paying me. Right. No, I just think she makes it nice, and I think she's making the show. And I'm not even saying she's making the show because she's a bad, crazy, wild TV. I just think so far, outside of what she did to Brandy, she has not done anything wrong. I'm like, I've seen Tamra be a little bit, Vicky be a little, but not my Dorinda. No. Anyways, I talked about Vicky and the exchange that she had. I feel like Vicky needs to grow up when she tries to exchange with Dorinda. A lot of times she has that whole like, oh, okay, well, fine, we won't talk about it, which I don't like. I don't like that. And ultimately, this is going to be a tough one. Not a tough one, but I got to admit, so like Dorinda is from the Northeast where people speak and they, excuse me, this happened, you say what you say, you get it off your chest, you have your best of friends, and you're talking tons of shit with them. It's not that challenging. Vicky's more like, wah, wah, wah. And it's like, Vicky's not necessarily a Southern California West Coast gal. She's from Chicago. But the point is, like, the notion that, like, Dorinda's being so mean, that is just how people talk to each other to get the messages across. What would you like? And I come from California. I grew up in California, lived about 7 years in New York City. I felt like the communication in New York City, for the most part, some people are crazy, is really great. Is it in your face? Is it, oh, Ronnie, you made an error here, let's talk about it. Boom, 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 boom. And then I got to either decide at that point to say, no, you're wrong, or whatever. Or, oh, okay, cool. You know what? I kind of dropped the ball. I got you next time. Like, that is how people talk. The communication is so much easier because there's nothing lingering. On the West Coast, where Vicky's lived a lot of her life at this point, there is a lot of sunshine, 75-degree weather that people are trying to match as far as their lifestyle. What you'll hear a lot of times is, oh, no problem, or oh, I'm chill, or laid back lifestyle. So people want so badly to not ever have an issue, thinking they don't have an issue. Now, listen, if you don't have an issue, that's great. But a lot of times I have seen, this is my calculation, and I'll move on after this, people in the Southern California area, again, I grew up there, so I know I've got my duality between this opinion, but they will have this opinion where it's like, I'm cool. Secretly, they're not cool. It's all like being shoved somewheres, in the back of their mind, and the passive aggressive energy comes out later. And so I think my question to you, put it in the comments. What would you choose? Do you want more of the in your face, yo, Ronnie, you dropped the ball, Ronnie, you messed up here? Or would you want somebody to be like, oh, fine, perfect, good job, Ronnie? And meanwhile, they kind of are like on some, they really have some resentful energy towards me, and I'd have to hear about it much later at a, when it just kind of bursts out, because you can't let that stuff not be explored. It's still in your system. Don't lie to yourself. Just because the weather is 75 degrees doesn't mean you're supposed to have a beautiful day. And that was my gripe with California. But anyways, I just thought contextually, I feel like I hear, understand, and have communicated with friends who are like Dorinda to me, even, and me to them. So it's not like I'm this chump that just takes critique. I've also been like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what was going, And then I have to say, get your shit together, boom and boom. And usually it's in a place of love, anyways. Unfortunately, I guess all these women, as an excuse, I will say, all these women aren't necessarily that close of friends, so they aren't really maybe in that comfortable space. That's maybe the only thing to see the other side. Anyways, moving on. Taylor and Brandy, they recap a little bit of what's going on. And they move forward, right? I will tell you, and I said it a minute ago, I think these recaps from the last night, it's just too slow, boring, slowing the show down. So it's as if the first 20 minutes we're just hearing about what happened at the Red Lion Inn, and then it's what happened Taylor and Brandy at, what was your thing. And it's nice that they could move forward, but I don't know, we got to move on is how I felt. Anyways, moving on, and finally a new aspect of the next day. Phaedra is ready for no more bitter. She says what I was saying. She's ready for no more bitter Bettys, and for people to change their panties while wine tasting. So she just wants Phaedra wants like a whole new vibe. And I've got some critique for Phaedra on this episode, and I know you do too, but we'll talk about it in a second. But it's wine tasting. I think it's perfect. And I will say, and I've said so many times on this particular platform, that I don't think you need to make a great Housewives or reality show in general nothing but drama filled to the brim. I think fun outings like this is wonderful. So I like the wine tasting idea. You as a viewer get to vicariously live through them. Heck, maybe I'll go to that winery one day. Like I said, I had been to Glass Lake, which is close to the Berkshires, but it's not. It's like 25 minutes away. But I had a little. I mentioned this episode 1 here. Went out with some friends, and we got a little, I guess, like a rental log cabin kind of a thing in the winter. And so, I really do want to explore those areas. Again, Glass Lake is not the Berkshires, but there is a proximity, and there is a general culture that is similar. So who knows? Maybe I'll go check out that winery, because you just never know. We didn't go to the Berkshires because we didn't have Berkshire's money. But it was fun though. We drank, had fun, watched Drag Race. I mean, cooked. It was wonderful. Themed nights, game nights, doing puzzles, doing all kinds of stuff. It was great. And it's that whole like, this is the ultimate girls trip, that ours was, just a group of friends. Anyways, that was a while ago. Phaedra and Tamra are exercising, and Tamra wants to learn more from Phaedra. Now, I liked this part of Tamra. She's been a little sleepy for this series, in my opinion, specifically because her only breakout moment was when she, wah, cried because Dorinda said, look at the plaque. It's like, look at the plaque. Just shut up about it already. But wah. So Tamra, unfortunately, because I really love what she's doing with the 2 peas in a pod or 2 teas in a pod or whatever. Loved her on the show. I didn't watch a lot of OC. I always say that. So I may have some blind spots, but I thought she would be so ravishing on this series. And she has been really quiet, uninteresting, and confessionals that are like really slow. I mean, banked confessionals, meaning pre-written out confessionals. I don't know. It's just she's not selling it. Is how I felt throughout the season, most of the season. But I like this because she's right. Tamra does want to learn more about Phaedra because Phaedra isn't giving us anything. And I noticed that at the beginning because as an avid Candy fan, and I don't want to go back and forth 1,000 times, but I had such complicated feelings about, like, yes, it's been a great, couple of years, we have to allow people to learn from their mistakes. But at the same time, we're seeing Phaedra just dip in and do her fun confessionals that we love, that we're used to, that we miss, and we're loving it. But we're kind of not hearing anything about her. And yes, I have no issue that at the dinner, lunch rather, that they had in the alley. Remember a couple episodes ago that she said she is seeing someone, but she doesn't really want to talk about it in front of these cameras, which may insinuate that she wants to be brought back to Atlanta, and maybe she would let the world in if she got that type of contract again. I gave her a bit of credit on that. Like I was like, okay, you don't know it's a nobody, but we can't have everyone showing themselves and we not get to the bottom line of anything about you. So between who you're dating, what's going on in your regular life, or we do need to cross um, that epic line of what actually did happen. Who said that? Lies, 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 all of that. Now, Tamra wasn't pushing for that, but she was at least pushing. And I thought it was a good move for Tamra. I think she's right to ask that. Phaedra, there is not necessarily a free pass. If Taylor has to get in the mud to kind of bring up some really harsh things to remember, Brandy has to, Dorinda has to. I think you could at least explain a little bit more, But see, Phaedra gets off on being fashionable, and she changes her units, talks about an acting role she has. She's just so charismatic that you almost forget. So good on you, Tamra, for at least asking the question. And by the way, I love Phaedra. Back when I really started watching Atlanta was season 5 with the great Kenya Moore, the queen of the show, has always been. Phaedra was great on that as well, and I did miss her. So it's complex. Team Candy though all day. If you have to choose Phaedra or Candy, which we should never go one-on-one, going toe to toe. I really don't want to do that. However, it's always Team Candy around here. Anyways, it's a good conversation, but I don't like that Dorinda is unhappy narrative. Okay. So this is, sorry, I was just reading my note there. This is where Tamra is with Phaedra, and she's taking this moment after they kind of address, I want to know more about Phaedra. That is Dorinda unhappy. I mentioned it before. I don't like the Dorinda is unhappy narrative. But Tamra does say, listen, Phaedra, I think you're the one who has the really great communication skills for something like this. It's your day at the winery. Maybe you can make a comment. So I'm not going to knock Tamra. Again, points for Tamra for all of it. Don't love the Dorinda unhappy narrative because, again, if you're, silly and don't read my plaque that says don't have food in my room, don't call me unhappy as to why I told you something. If you're saying whoop it up and embarrassing yourself and being kind of rude to the restaurant that we're at, and I say, would you stop it? Don't say I'm unhappy as to why I had that action. I had that action because you were being silly and you needed to be called upon it. Is what I think. That's what I think. That is what I think. I swear to you, it's going to sound, in fact, yeah, it sounds like I'm on Dorinda's payroll. Dorinda, let's make it nice. Let's put some money in Ronnie's pockets. Okay, let's move on. So, trip to the winery. Phaedra asks everyone to start over. I think this was good. Again, I say time and time again, I don't need my reality shows to be filled with drama to the T. These are charismatic, funny women or cast members in general. For any reality show, and the greatest editors you're ever going to have. So you can make great storylines. And I thought the winery was really, really great, vicariously living through them. Phaedra emotionally prays for the group. Dorinda does receive the message. I was loving that, as a Dorinda super fan. It was a great episode for her, and sometimes she was hungover. Remember, we do need to turn it down. We do need to really slow it down on a couple of things. But what comes up is what was the most important thing. Phaedra's departure. Vicky asked, like, what about you leaving the show? What was your side of things, or how did it go for you? And I guess I don't knock Phaedra for saying it's no one's business, but I kind of think, like, how did she get casted? How did she get casted? Like, that's something we do all want to know. And if there's two sides to a story, tell it, not just in the confessional and just be, oh, well, you may not know, the way it looked made me look away. Well, you're on the show. Let's tell the group, it's hard because you don't owe nothing to nobody. But if this did happen on the show, so the thing is, like, it happened on the show. Maybe Portia's more at fault, and Phaedra maybe didn't want to step into a lane of saying something about Portia. Maybe, I don't know. I don't really touch any of that stuff because, again, I was more on Candy's side. But I'm trying to be a good viewer here and think, Phaedra, just say something, say, even if it's, you don't have to blame anyone, you don't have to take anyone down. It's just, this is what happened. This is where I wasn't necessarily in the wrong. It just felt like she could have done something. I'm more upset that Vicky didn't follow up on it was like Vicky's like, oh, okay, you're not going to talk about it, fine. And I think the reason, because I tried to like conceptually understand what that is, there's so many things that the ladies and if anyone on reality TV, or you at your job, or working in radio or podcasting, where there's certain things that are sort of off limits. The problem is, so because they're off limits, like someone like Vicky will internalize that and be like, well, I don't want certain things to come up and be rehashed, so let me like back up off her. But I wish there was a part of Vicky that would have been like, come on, Phaedra, tell us. Like, I've been on the show for what, 14 years, 13 years. And I've had all these moments that, didn't reflect upon me. Give us something. Because right now we only have what we know, and it doesn't look great on your end. I wish somebody would have jumped in and kind of said that. But again, what I think that happened is everyone has their things, and they are all very, and I have no problem with this. They're sensitive to the idea that when somebody like a cast member says, I'm not bringing it up and I'm putting my foot down, they're sensitive to that because they all have their things. But their things might be actual things that we don't know and don't need to know. Phaedra's thing, we saw, and we do need to know. And I guess maybe Phaedra's playing the long game. I'm not going to talk about the boyfriend. I'm not going to talk about the Candy situation. I'm going to have a great season. People are going to, fall in love with me again. And they have, and I have. But that's going to help her negotiation when she goes to Real Housewives of Atlanta again, if she does. So maybe there's a long game in that. A bit disappointed, but I could be disappointed and still hopeful at what's going to happen, as long as she never comes from my Kenya Moore, which I think they're in a good place, because on Watch What Happens Live, Kenya was asked about like who were the top 5 shadiest people on all the series, all the franchises, and Phaedra was up there. So I was a little bit surprised about that. So to me, it said that, at least Kenya's got a little bit of support for Phaedra. So that was kind of cool. Anyways, as I was mentioning, this whole thing needs more attention, and hopefully we see it on Real Housewives of Atlanta at some point, or another girls trip, or we just need to know more, Phaedra. I guess you could kind of leave it for yesteryear, but we have not forgot. We have not forgot. I've never forgot, because of what it potentially could have done, to Candy and Todd and everything. It was not good. So, well, that was then. Dorinda is listening to Brandy regarding her being on pause. Yeah, I've never really loved. So, okay. Brandy is telling Dorinda, you feel like you're on pause, but don't worry, I've been there before, and you're just kind of in denial to a degree. Again, Dorinda is taking it with a grain of salt, which I like, because she's hungover, because she said some really, really awful things. But I don't want that to be abused. Brandy, I don't think your situation is the same. I don't think you were a staple across all of Bravo the way that Dorinda was. Dorinda was the face of the network practically, whereas Brandy was big in Beverly Hills. She's been big on other reality shows, but she's been big in a way that it's like mess. It's she comes in with a spicy moment, and then she leaves, and she also came in more. She may have had more of a Hollywood name due to the scandal with Eddie Cibrian and Leanne Rhymes, but Brandy wasn't ever comparable to Dorinda. So I think Dorinda has every right to say, this is what they said, I'm on pause, and it is what it is. But there is a small sense that I get that Brandy's being a smidge condescending in the way that she's talking to Dorinda. And I know that's sort of a overused word. I don't like any of it. I don't like the housewives being dangled, with like an opportunity, as if like they got to do something different to earn their job back. And yes, it's a job just like anyone's job, but like I would love sometimes for a little bit more compassion from Andy Cohen, where it's like, let's just give him a clean break and we'll bring him back when we want to bring him back, And sometimes people do need breaks, but sometimes I don't get the biggest sense from him that he has a nonchalant energy about the way he talks about situations like this. So above and beyond what Brandy is talking about with Dorinda, I think that I wish the housewives weren't. When you watch the show, you're like, oh, I don't like that they're pitted against each other. Okay, so another thing I don't like is, and I mean that's the show. I don't like when they are sort of lured, like if you do this, you might get back on the show, and I guess that's producer 101, but and it's no one's fault. It's not like Andy Cohen's fault, but in a space where he's the only kind of host of what he does, and there's no competition, sometimes he gives a nonchalant energy about the way housewives are so disposable. And yes, they're disposable, but yes, he's disposable as well, to a degree. And I don't know. My favorite thing about housewives, we'll say it like this. My favorite thing about housewives is that we get to see women of a certain age that aren't typically always on television. Hollywood standards usually keeps everything young for men and women, but definitely for women. And it's like this really great space. It's like, we don't have a TV show like the Golden Girls anymore. So at least we could have, not that these are of that age, but we could have, 45, 55, 65-year-old women, like, showcasing the lives of, whatever state, city that they're in. And I like it, and that's the part that I like about it. But I don't like it when it turns into like, the desperate pleading housewife to get back on the network, and I don't love that. And I guess that's not necessarily anybody's fault. Bravo, Andy, whoever, but it seems to be playing more and more lately, is what I see. And I don't know. I don't enjoy that part of it. I don't know how you necessarily remedy that. But that's not what matters here. What matters here is Brandy's giving her opinion, and she's entitled to that. I just don't think that Brandy fully is in a space of, I'm caring for you, Dorinda. I'm trying to educate you and help you. I think there's a little extra to it. That, yeah, I don't. It's sincere, but it's also like, look, we're in the same boat, and you haven't learned just yet, but you will see as time goes by, because I was in the same situation as you, Dorinda. And it's just like, sadly, Brandy, Dorinda is not in the same situation as you. And I do think she's on pause, and she does have the Sirius XM show, and she is very adored by the network. But hey, we all have our opinions. What I loved about the episode the most is that we had memorable moments. So we had Taylor talking about Camille dancing on Beverly Hills when they were in Vegas, which we all love Camille from Club MTV from years and years and years ago. Tamra getting engaged to Eddie. And we would never ever there's always the like Eddie and hey girl. But I would never really throw that out there. But in the little engagement, I was like, it just, he just, he looked more like family, And so, because I didn't watch a lot of Orange County, as I said, in a consistent manner. And I've always known there was like that Eddie rumor. And I never, myself as a gay man, I'm like never trying to throw that out there just for no reason. But like, I was really reading the energy, and I was like, oh, okay. Hey, Eddie. Hey, girl. It's like, it felt very familiar. But he's gorgeous. He's a very good looking guy. And it was a nice side of Tamra. So I love that memory too. So we're not going to knock, and if he is straight and, having the good vagina with Tamra, I think that is wonderful. Like, they should have all of the fun, cardiovascular 101. I mean, go for it. First trip to the Bluestone Manor is what Dorinda talks about. And I loved that clip. We have Vicky talking about she loved when her kids were younger, kind of like the busyness of her life at the time. And I suspect that Vicky, as she mentions, so I don't suspect, but Vicky is feeling a little more isolated, and she does miss that stage of her life. So that was nice that she brought it up. Eva changing Marley's name was important to her as far as a memorable moment. Jill and Morocco, Brandy and LVP, which I got to say, those seasons I really didn't watch very much because I thought LVP was not interesting. Kyle was not interesting. Like I said, I watched more of season 1 than those other seasons, and I thought Camille was interesting and Adrian was interesting, and every clip was damn LVP and Kyle. So I was out pretty good. I spot watched, but I don't recall a lot of LVP and Brandy. So I was actually very curious and intrigued to see those memories. Phaedra talks about her kids being born. So that was really cool. Yeah, that was actually very cool. And it's like you do this show, you got some lifelong memories, and they're not always good, but those ones are definitely good. Leaving the winery, Dorinda tries to communicate with Vicky. Dorinda kind of says a backhanded little comment, almost like I expected more from you. She didn't say it that way, but I felt like that's what she was trying to insinuate. But the thing is, it was great communication. Vicky did receive it. Vicky couldn't have. She could have been like, but I think Vicky did receive her. And there is a part that Dorinda says, well, you know what? I first watched Vicky on the TV show, and I loved that she was the single mom. And there was a relatability towards, here I am raising Hannah, and I am alone. So there was some connection. And I like when you have two people that just don't really seem to have a lot of connection, that they can find something that does make sense for them both. They related to each other, Brandy picks up and then drops off Eva. So they're just having such a fun time at the winery. Brandy's shoes were quite high, so I'm glad she took off her shoes, because if she would have carried Eva with those shoes, it would have been even more. I mean, they both would have been hurt probably. Anyways, we got Christmas in July. Christmas in September coming up, which, I mean, from the clip that we saw, it almost didn't happen. So it's kind of, Dorinda the night before was like, I'm just canceling the whole thing, which I can understand. But luckily we are not canceled and everything is back in order. And it's a nice, exciting time because, you think about Bluestone Manor, the coziness of it, and the women are going to dress to a T. Like, it's going to be great. Dorinda putting in work for Christmas in September. She talks about how excited she is, and she's got this crew and that crew and this crew and that crew. And that is the part of Dorinda that I feel is delightful. And if you don't like Dorinda and you think she's ruining the season or whatever, this is just not the place for you. I thought she's great, and I love the excitement. It's something different, and it feels very lived in the moment. So many things we do these days are not experiences, and Dorinda knows how to bring on an experience. We do a lot of things through digital. We do a lot of meeting at a bar, going drinking, but Dorinda has a way about making an event, and I feel really good about it. So I was glad it worked out, and she did take her humble pie. Let's be honest. Dorinda took her humble pie this episode, and it was probably rightfully so, because she had kind of hit a wall. So I can see that too. I'll be a little critical if that's what you want. The ladies look so beautiful. Every single one of them. I can't even put one on top of the other. As far as like, who was dressed amazing. I think Brandy I liked her dress because you got to see it in the flashback. I love what Dorinda was wearing. I love what Phaedra was wearing. And I love what Jill was wearing, Jill does not celebrate Christmas. So it just like it was like festive and holiday spirit, which I thought was really, really great. So yeah, they all look gorgeous, each and every one of them. Vicky looked so beautiful, and so did Tamra, and who am I missing? Taylor, Eva, and Phaedra. Everyone was so great. But so quickly we talk about Brandy's dress, and it's from the reunion. And Brandy's like, oh, this is the reunion I got canceled on, and this is why I got canceled. Not canceled, but like canceled. And then all of a sudden it comes to the issue of like, because she, had made the mentions of Denise Richards or whatever. So she couldn't wear that reunion dress. So that's why she was wearing it at the house, basically. Brandy and Denise Richards. I'm so bored of this topic, or am I just being a little biased towards Denise Richards, where I'm just like, leave her alone, It didn't amuse me. Now, we got a lot of juice from this episode, but I'm just not into it, me personally. If Denise wants to knock it down with Brandy, I say go for it. I'm all about it. But why does it gotta keep coming up over and over again. And, Denise made a choice. She left the show. So, like, I don't know, like, just putting out all that information, it doesn't. Okay, well, let's talk about the information and then we'll go from there. But again, I'm snoring. Brandy, Denise Richards, again, didn't, happen or not. I almost don't give a shit. Tamra says that she's spoken with Denise, so this kind of changes the game. And she said when she spoke to Denise, Denise denied it. So there's like a little bit of a question of like, well, why is Tamra and Denise talking? Whereas Tamra goes, well, I've been friends with her for a long time. And the thing about it all, what I loved is we're getting all this information. We're getting like a new perspective of Tamra, saying she knows Denise on that level. That not on that level. Well, maybe on that level. But what I loved was that Vicky said, well, who do you believe? Like, do you believe Brandy, what she's saying? Or do you believe Denise, who's denying it? And Tamra believes Denise at first and accidentally said the wrong name. And I'm just like, what? That's very odd. What are you really covering up, I suppose? But yeah, she says she believes Denise, but what she really meant was, I believe Brandy, which Brandy, of course, felt vindicated, I guess. And then it goes to a space that I don't think maybe even happened this way. But you can't knock someone's experiences. Tamra says she has stories at BravoCon of Denise Richards hitting on her. And then she says she invited her to the room, this, and this. And so now we've got two people who are not, I mean, and I don't want to lower your level if you're not on the regular franchise shows like Real Housewives of Orange County for Tamra and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills for Brandy. But you have two women who aren't on the shows who are talking about Denise Richards, who we've known and loved since the 90s, and you're not even and you're keeping her name in your mouth during this show. Granted, the production did want and ask for this, but I mean, you heard Phaedra say, I'm not talking about this. You kind of wish Brandy and Tamra wouldn't have talked about this. If you're a Denise fan, I happen to be a Denise fan, I suppose. I don't know why I have a urge to want to have the fight for her, but I do want to. Oh, I know why. Because she can't. She's not there to. I mean, she did kind of walk out on her show, but she's not there to. Let me turn this real quick. She's not there. 1 second, please. She's not there to have a rebuttal or state an opinion back. And it just seems a little redundant to me. But that was. You ever watch an episode and you say, oh, I don't really love this storyline where they're going, but like I do admit that was a lot. Now, Tamra, we're gonna have to get Tamra on the podcast here, and we're gonna have to ask her more questions because I mean, everyone's at BravoCon. She invited you to the room. How do you know that it was like a romantic inviting? I need to know more. With an insinuation like that, Tamra, I need to know more. It's just weird. I mean, there's all kinds of text messages, but where is the flirting part of it? And is that how it goes? Like Denise Richards, like, says, bye, Aaron. And then she just starts flirting with girl. I don't know. Inviting you to the room could be looked at in so many different ways. People go to events together and they're like, oh yeah, come up to the room. And we'll, does that always mean something? Well, I mean, in this situation, I don't feel like it was what it meant. So I want to make that clear that I'm not negating the situation of someone asking somebody to go to a hotel room. But I'm saying in the context of we're at BravoCon together, pop on over to the room. I don't know, but Tamra did kind of like, oh God, and it was something that I probably shouldn't mention. And I think the reason that she called me is because she was going to go through the situation of being accused of being with Brandy, and she maybe thought I was going to say something, and I told her I wouldn't, and oh damn, now I am. That part looked real. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it really was an actual romantic interest. I just don't want to hear. How many cast members are on the show? A bunch, right? I don't want to hear about Denise Richards. She obviously didn't like it. She obviously, even if she's trying to quote unquote clean up her image, the Charlie Sheen thing probably always, stays with her. But that still does not mean I mean, it could mean that it's true or if it's false, but she doesn't need to. She chose to leave the show because of it. So maybe we could let it go. I mean, it is part of Brandy's story, and Brandy probably doesn't want to feel like a liar. So if there's an outright lie, um, I think the note that I wrote was it's not about Brandy being a liar or not. It's about crossing a line. It wasn't necessary to put out, and then you just easily saying, well, if Aaron doesn't care and it's true, why should she care? I mean, I don't know. It's like that whole thing. Well, when you do a reality show, all of your stuff comes to the front. But that's not, isn't she, in my opinion, a married couple, they're welcome to have, outside guests and visitors. So maybe there is, okay, if I had to play the other side, maybe there's a side of me that does say, Denise Richards, if you would have just mentioned that, yes, this happened, and I don't appreciate her speaking it, you know, out loud. This was a private moment, and I won't be friends with that lady anymore. But it did happen, and it is time to move on. Everyone would have moved on, and no one would have even looked at Denise Richards in any way, and she could have been happily continuing to be with Aaron and raising her daughters, and all of the stuff, the OnlyFans, everything. Uh, so I don't know. I'm a little perplexed about that. Um, what else do we have? Like I said, I thought it was a little bit of a boring topic, but there were some major gems in terms of what's going on. And BravoCon, I mean, biggest commercial for BravoCon you're ever gonna get was right there. Question of the day is, who in the room would you want to have sex with? Is what everyone's sort of talking about. A lot of Phaedra, Tamra, Eva's names were coming up, kind of from everybody. Well, they asked this to Brandy initially, and then everybody starts to kind of make mention of who they would. But the funniest moment of the episode is when Jill is offended that nobody wants to have sex with Jill Zarin. Nobody wants to have sex with Jill Zarin. I can't believe it. Now, I would. Jill Zarin is beautiful, and that is not my vibe. But I'm still, yeah, I would. Oh, don't you worry, Jill Zarin. There's still people out there, and I'm for you too. So I just thought that was so funny, and I was into it. They try to ask Vicky about it too. She says she's strictly dickly. Well, she didn't say that, but that's how she acted, and she gets very like uncomfortable about it. It's funny because Tamra says that Vicky isn't a prude, but like on the show, she's really trying to not talk so bluntly or whatever. And I would never. And they were like, girl, we're just trying to ask you, who would you of the girls? And she, no, I only like penises. I only like men. It's like, we get it. I mean, she was as uncomfortable as a straight man. With a straight guy, you're kind of always like, doing the same thing. You're like, oh, who would you, or do you find him attractive? And they get so uncomfortable. And it's like, bitch, I could talk about a pretty woman all the time. I mean, growing up, before realizing what you realize, you mess around in the bedroom with women or whatever. Obviously, I ended up being gay, but like, it's not the biggest deal in the world to talk about, what is outside of your preference. You still have a eyes and a heart, and you could still see who's hot and who would like, it's just a comment. But Vicky was so uncomfortable. I was like, oh my God, you're giving me straight man energy. Like, just fucking say somebody. Anyway, she says Brandy, which may have been a problem because Brandy like turns it on a little bit later. We got dinner time. Dorinda's not drinking, which I think is good for everybody. Taylor explains that she cares about Brandy, and that is the reason everything felt so hurtful, and she didn't even think it could be hurtful. She said that the weird problem with Brandy and her is that if you don't feel anything with the person, you're you can't be hurt by them, right? If you don't feel anything, whatever she said, I was just like, okay, this again, like, we don't even care. If you like her, you like her. If you don't like her, you don't like her. Taylor, this has got to be a wrap on the Brandy part, unless there's a new story, because I was just like, snooze again. No offense to Taylor, and I thought she was going to get like mad actually, but she was kind of circling it around that like, no, we really are close. Oh, and then they kissed, so there goes that. I mean, it is a night of Brandy just butt everywhere, lap dancing everywhere, kissing everywhere. Like, Brandy is ready. Brandy and Vicky do bond. They flirt a little bit in the way that Brandy does some, unmentionable, visual like a mime. Ooh, what I would do to that. It's just it's much for a lot of women. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna make it like Vicky's a prude. I think it's much for a lot of women. Brandy's actually like turning it on, but it's definitely funny, I guess you would say. Outside of Bluestone Manor, though, there's snow. I think it's gorgeous. I love the festive moment. Christmas in September. You typically think Christmas in July as the other little funny thing people celebrate. And Christmas in September even better because that's my birth month. September 5th. We always celebrate Ronnie Jr. So yeah. Back inside, we have the gift exchange. As I mentioned, Brandy kisses Taylor. Jill gets her ugly Christmas sweater, which I thought was fun. It was the first time she had gotten one, and she really appreciated it. She said, "Thank you, Dorinda." I love the confessionals of Jill Zarin this episode. She wasn't in it a lot, but I felt like she was coming into her own in the confessionals. And then we got the vibrator as a gift. We see all the vibrator flashback moments, and Merry Christmas. Brandy's giving a lap dance to everyone, and then they all start dancing. And at the very end, they do a cheers. Everyone's like letting loose, they do a cheers, and then Dorinda happily, because this is what makes her more happy than the drinking, than all the work she puts in. She just wants to redeem and feel like people appreciated her. And to my defense with Dorinda, with all of those things, there were so many moments where I don't feel like she was appreciated. And I think that's where a lot of her issues come from. You got to feel appreciated. And as much as they have issues with her, and I'm glad they hashed it out and they put it out there in the universe, I hope that now as we wrap this thing up and we have maybe one more episode, one more day in the Bluestone Manor for these ladies, that there could be some kind of like, you know what? Dorinda had some missteps, but she was really, really, trying. I just love this group of women. It's just such a well put together cast. I think if anything, starting a day late would have been better because you could have Jill from the beginning, but such a good group. And all Dorinda has ever wanted in terms of Bluestone Manor is to feel like everyone appreciated the hard work that she went out of her way to make it a warm, wonderful experience. Now, does production help with a bunch of stuff? Sure. But Dorinda really loves throwing a party, being the hostess with the mostest. And what's wrong with having that appreciation for her? I think that's good. Anyways, we made it through the episode. We talked a lot. I just wanted to say I appreciate you checking out all of the podcasts that I do. I do a ton of them. Obviously, you're looking at Randomly with Ronnie Jr. That's podcast interview series. Difficult Podcasters is a lot of fun. Here's the links on all of the stuff, or some of the stuff rather, that I do. I said do. I said do. No. And I would love it if you could support it. Obviously, I've been in the broadcast space for such a long time, since around 2002. Whew, that was a while ago. So I've had all these great radio and television experiences. Obviously, the landscape has changed so much where now it's all about self-producing work, which I was never really a big fan of. But now, because people are supporting and loving the channel, I am actually learning to love it a little bit more. So I always enjoy doing these shows. The recaps are a little fun and funny. I do sometimes rather have somebody else to do it with because there's a different perspective. But I try my very best to kind of say, okay, if I'm Team Dorinda this hard, I got to see what Tamra's side of it was as well. That's what I tried to do. So I would like to hope that you enjoy, what type of work we're doing here. If you want to support it in any way financially, patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. There's content there, and you could subscribe to 4 different tiers. And that's always fun because that helps the channel go and grow. And that way my microphone doesn't fall, because it almost fell, and we're all good. So that is all for today. There's a lot of talks about Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3, which I believe Giselle Bryant's in. So you already rest assured that that's going to be a great season because she is the queen. From the tentative or supposed cast, it feels like Heather and Whitney of Real Housewives of St. Louis, or what are they called? Real Housewives of Salt Lake City will be sort of the dead weight of the show. I don't even think they're qualified to be that impactful on their own series. So it's actually a huge surprise that they're like sort of considered all stars or whatever, because they don't even bring a lot of goodness in their own show. So that's going to be a big surprise, and I think we're going to see them struggle a little bit. The other supposed cast member is Leah. Leah's funny because on the series I think she struggles, but I don't think she'll struggle on this. Portia, I always say I've had my issues thinking about Candace. We interviewed her years ago, but like watching the show, I always say don't ever count Candace out. Candace is going to win a Grammy. Like Candace is for the long haul. Housewives is going to be something she thought about 10 years ago at some point. Like Candace is not to be played with, in my opinion. And I can't remember who else is on it. Is there anybody from? I was going to say Dallas. There's no such thing as Dallas. Oh, Marisol and Alexia. Obviously, if you really wanted to pick the ultimate Miami people, I would have rather went with Gertie and Larsa, but Marisol is great. And it's going to be a bit of a challenge because you got Marisol and Alexia who are tight. You got Heather and Whitney who are tight. So you got a lot of dual cast members. So I don't know how those people who are there by themselves, how they're going to really fare. Leah's there by herself. Who's Leah going to connect with? I really don't know. It will be good. It will be good. Anyways, I really, really hope you enjoyed talking Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 2 with me. Busy schedule I have been having, so I was just trying to get an episode in, and I hope we did it some justice. If you liked it, great. If you didn't like it, bye-bye. You don't have to watch again. But yeah, I hope you feel beautiful. I hope you feel amazing and have a great summer. Like keep your summer exciting because it'll come and go. And we watched Ultimate Girls Trip together, and we got to recap this episode. So I'm happy about that. I suppose it's time to go. I don't want to say goodbye, but it is time to say goodbye. Support the Patreon if you can. RandomlyRJr.com has all the information too. I'll talk to you on the next one. Team Dorinda.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.